On this podcast, we speak with the Museum of Youth Culture to find out more about their work promoting cultural heritage to young people through photography, ephemera, and educational texts.
Hey, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm in Scotland actually at the moment. It's quite sunny and nice, which is good. But yeah, so I'm Hannah, and I've actually only been working on this project since January. But I'll just tell you a wee bit more about it. So basically, it's an Erasmus Plus funded project that links 5 organisations across Europe. So the coordinators are in Romania, and the other organisations are in Italy, Poland, Bulgaria, and then us in the UK. So we are basically focused on engaging and promoting cultural heritage in youth, and encouraging young people to discover and explore their cultural heritage. And as part of this project, we've been running different activities, all online due to the COVID pandemic. But it's basically been a number of online workshops and training for young people, including a debating workshop, also online courses in cultural management and cultural entrepreneurship. And also as part of this project, the coordinators in Romania have been developing an online platform where young people and youth workers from all of these 5 countries can all create an account and interact there and access the courses and also access more information about the countries, cultural heritage in these countries. So that's what this interview will be used for, to post onto that platform. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know if you'd maybe just like to start by introducing yourself and what is Museum of Youth Culture?
Yeah, so I'm Lisa. I work for Youth Club Archive in the Museum of Youth Culture. We're an emerging museum that looks to celebrate the incredible story of young people, really, looking at the kind of sound, styles and everyday lives of young people, and really placing young people at the center of our cultural heritage and also our creative history. At the heart of our museum sits a collection of about 150,000 photographs called Youth Club Archive that all document youth culture, spanning from about the 1950s to present day, really looking at kind of, the amazing stories of young people. The collection was really founded out of this idea and this realization in the 90s that no one was really trying to collate these photographs and these stories and kind of champion them as important parts of our heritage. So the kind of collections was started to try and document that. And, in 2015, we really started working on building a museum of youth culture. So our end goal is to have a physical museum space that celebrates youth culture in all its forms. I think that's kind of, us in a nutshell.
So what work do you actually do with young people at the moment? Or are you asking people to send things from their youth in, or is it kind of both?
It's a bit of both. So we say we aim to preserve, share, educate and celebrate youth culture history. So on the one side, a big part of what we do is this preservation work. So it's trying to collect stories of growing up, with the focus on kind of teenage and early 20s. Really trying to preserve that story before it gets lost. So that's a combination of working with professional photographers and archives, and then working with the general public. So we take on public submissions. So if someone's got a photograph of themselves as a teenager, they can submit that. We take on oral histories, we take on kind of objects, ephemera. So really trying to build a really extensive collection and picture of different people's experiences of growing up across generations and in different places. Now we say preserve to inspire, so a really big part of what we do is then using those collections to celebrate and educate youth culture. So we do kind of pop-ups, events, workshops, and it's supported by a big education program. So we strongly believe that these amazing stories and kind of different experiences of growing up in the past can be really beneficial to young people today in terms of this sense of kind of identity and self-expression and really finding yourself and the importance of that period in your life and kind of going through those processes and kind of seeing other people talk about those experiences or learning about those different experiences and that helping and benefiting someone in how they progress. A lot of the work and creative work we do with young people is very hands-on creative workshops. So really using the collections to get young people to think about their sense of self and sense of identity and how they can use that and put that out there in positive ways and use it to engage and connect with people. We're also very keen for the future Museum of Youth Culture to be a space that isn't just about young people, but it's also a space for young people. So, you know, maybe that's going to look more like a venue or a youth club. You know, we really want to innovate the museum sector and really reimagine what a museum looks like to make sure that, you know, it's really a space that has young people at its center and at its heart. So yeah, that a lot of the work is kind of around working with young people to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you found young people to be kind of engaged from the start, or have you found it more difficult? Or
I think our collection is so brilliant to engage with young people with, because they will always find something that relates to them now, whether it's, you know, a music that they listen to that, you know, originated 20 odd years ago, or kind of seeing someone go through the same highs and lows of being young. So I think that that's generally where we start with the collections, is we get young people to kind of talk about their experiences of being young and kind of using the collections to search through those. And I think once they see that reference point, that kind of helps us engage them and kind of structure how we work with them in the future. But I think that's what's, you know, it's relatable. It's not, you know, heritage with a capital H or something that can feel quite remote. You know, it's something that really directly relates to their life and their experiences. So we really try and use that to kind of think about heritage and our history in a much broader sense.
It sounds really interesting. It sounds cool. So what are the actual specific activities that you've been doing then with people?
It's changed quite a bit because of this past year. Before lockdown kicked in and it was kind of more more hands-on, the workshops were very much kind of hands-on creative workshops, looking at getting young people to consider who they are as a person and their identity and how they express that to other people, and then how they can document that. So whether that's a photography workshop with our photographers, or whether that's customizing a denim jacket with kind of the things that they see, you know, whether that's music or fashion, or kind of, you know, telling a story through that jacket that they can share with other people, or even down to making, you know, a patch that they feel represents who they are as a person. So quite hands-on creative workshops. Lockdown affected that quite a lot. So, you know, not being able to really, or finding it difficult really to translate our workshops into kind of remote workshops.
Yeah.
Down a lot of the education work, focused more around DIY archiving, and this idea that everyone's got an important story to tell about being young, and, you know, trying to create kind of workshops, but also resources, free resources for people to use that are around kind of almost starting your own archive, you know, interviewing your parents, interviewing your grandparents, kind of scanning photographs, kind of encouraging young people to take history and heritage into their own hands, and kind of understanding that, you know, being stuck at home, there's lots of interesting ways to explore history and heritage by speaking to their family members, or looking at the objects they have in their house and what stories those objects tell. So it was really around something that they could kind of take away and do themselves. Mm-hmm. I think kind of moving forward, we'll be looking at how we can bring those two together, because I think it has been interesting to see young people explore their heritage in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like make it something personal to them, because I think, well, one of my kind of next set of questions was about what you think cultural heritage is and what it means to you. Mm-hmm. So it's quite difficult to define.
It is. I think one thing that we've been kind of talking about a lot amongst ourselves is this idea of intangible heritage, and kind of more emotions and feelings that aren't necessarily, they're rooted in many things, but they aren't say tied to a specific event, or kind of I guess they tie into this idea of cultural heritage and kind of how we see and perceive things. I think for me, it's kind of the things that help define who you are, I think in many ways, is our cultural heritage. You know, whether that, you know, is the music we listened to as a child, or kind of what the culture was in our family home, or maybe, you know, we're from a diasporic community, how those different elements of cultural heritage influence who we are as a person, kind of how we go on in life. Because I think so much of youth culture and so much of who you are as a young person, all those different cultural influences influence the person that you become. I think that's why that period is so poignant and so important in someone's life, because you can really trace the person that someone's become through the events and the things that happen at that point. But I think that's really that intangible kind of history that defines so much, really.
Yeah, it's interesting how you're trying to make something that kind of is intangible into something, well, eventually physical. You said that you want to make a physical space at some point.
Yeah. Well, we always say to people, so we've got our Growing Up in Britain campaign, which is about people submitting their photographs. And we say, first loves, the first jobs, Saturday hangouts and family holidays. It's like a little tagline, but I think it captures that. It's kind of those things we go through and the kind of influences of friends and family and kind of everything that surrounds us to shape who we are and who we become.
So what will so at the moment the museum is just a platform online, that's right?
Yeah, so we've got a big physical archive that's based in Printworks London, which is a big nightclub in Southeast London. So we've got an office in there that houses our physical collections, and we run a lot of workshops and education from there. And then we've got our online museum and archive that everyone can access. And we do a lot of pop-ups. So we're actually going to be opening a pop-up gallery space around Carnaby Street in April time. But the end goal is to have a permanent physical museum space. We say by 2025, so within the next 4 years. That's really kind of a home for youth culture, and that celebrates all those different themes.
Mm-hmm. Do you know anything else that's been similar to this, like celebrating youth culture?
Not very much. So there's one other youth culture archive that we know of. They're based in Berlin. They're called the Archiv der Jugendkulturen. And where we're primarily photographic led, they are primarily zine and ephemera led. So they've got one of the biggest collections of fanzines of zines in the world, going through different youth cultures and subculture movements, and they've got an incredible library. And a lot of what they do is education based. I think for us, we kind of have a bit of a cultural exchange, and they come over and see what we do, and we kind of learn from what they're doing over there. But their education program is really, really amazing, and they kind of use youth culture and different elements of youth culture, whether that's graffiti or fashion or kind of DJ, as a means to have interesting discussions again around identity with young people. So they have a really big education program, but they're the only ones we know of that are a specific youth culture only collection.
Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting because I think a lot of the focus on this project is kind of focused on more historic, like preserving historical cultural heritage and then encouraging young people to engage with that. But I think learning about more modern things and more modern parts of history is actually such a good way of engaging people with because it's still history and it's still part of culture. That I think it's really interesting. And do you think it makes it more accessible to everybody?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think that's where kind of the work we do can get really exciting, because kind of what we say is, everyone's been young, therefore everyone can be in our museum. It's a super open brief. Everyone's got an important story to tell, and I think because that's the approach we've taken, people will always find stories within our collections that relate to them, whether that's something that they've directly gone through, something that reminds them of something they've done, or a similarity they see. And I think that's where you can really open up a lot of discussions. We try and a lot of the times, I think because we're quite small, we're quite digitally led, and because you don't have permanent space, when we pop up in places, it will be in in a shop unit on the high street, or we do events in like biker cafes and pubs and stuff like that. So we try and kind of take our heritage and our collections to places where people go and hang out, and kind of that experience is live, if you want to put it that way.
Places that people actually like live in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we see our collection very much as kind of this living, breathing collection that we can take out to people, and people can kind of add to. So it's constantly changing and evolving.
Yeah, that sounds really great. So what are you said that your plans going forward are to make a physical space. Do you have any other further plans?
I think it's just very much around kind of, we're still quite a small organization, London based. So we're really trying to kind of break out of London, and really we want to represent the entirety of the UK and kind of be this London institution. And really get as many people involved in the museum as we can. You know, we're aiming for 2025, so it gives us a date to work towards. So until that happens, we kind of want to get out there, meet as many people as possible, get as many people involved as possible, really grow that education side and get young people involved in the museum so they feel they have a stake in this space as well, and kind of grow it that way, which I think is really exciting.
And how do you go about actually getting people involved?
It's quite a mix of things. So we do a lot of work with youth clubs, youth charities and community organizations. So that's really about us kind of reaching out to people. And then we do a lot of, like I said, pop-up events, but really focusing around going to places where people already go and kind of engage different communities and different audiences. You know, so it's all, because we're quite small, I think it's all about collaboration and working with people to kind of put on events and exhibitions and workshops and kind of, you know, I think that's also when our work gets really exciting and we can really get exciting conversations going.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, I think what we've found with this project is we've been trying to implement things during the pandemic. Getting the engagement online is difficult. Or like trying to adapt workshops so they can be, I think you were talking about it earlier a bit, where they can be used online. And then I think people just spend so much of their time on Zoom these days that they don't want to spend extra time doing things that
Exactly, that's 100% it, and I think it's quite a difficult thing to break through. I mean, I think it'd be really exciting and interesting to see what happens post lockdown and once things start to open up properly again. You know, I think young people have had a really rough time for it. You know, so many important hallmarks of kind of things that young people are, you know, told to work towards, and they have not happened, or, you know, had exams cancelled, or, you know, they haven't had their summer holiday before moving away, all these different things. So I think there's a real, I think for youth organizations and kind of youth charities, what's really important is to try and facilitate young people to kind of create their spaces and kind of be able to do and fill their potential, because I think there's a lot of energy there. Young people really want to get out and do things. So I think it's, you know, as organizations, we need to support that and make that happen.
And like let them have a say in it.
Yeah.
Great. So do you want to just let us know where we can find you? I know your the website address, so is that?
Yeah, so there's museumofyouthculture.com, where you can kind of search our collections and read kind of different stories and essays. On social media, we're at museumofyouthculture.com, at Museum of Youth Culture. So you can find everything on there as well, and kind of updates and stuff that we're working on.
That's great. And if you'd like, our platform is called COOLplatform.com, and on there you can access all the online courses and all the materials that we've been developing as part of this project.
So the COOLplatform.com. Cool. That sounds really exciting. So what's the next steps for you and the project?
So we've got next month we're actually doing some collaborative workshops with all 5 organizations. Recently, what we've just been doing is we've been implementing things in the UK, and each country has been doing it separately in their countries. But we're doing stuff all together next month, the start of April, which will be quite exciting. And also, because the thing about these Erasmus projects is they're normally like actual physical mobilities. So we would take a group of young people to Romania to do the activities in person. And that's kind of, I don't want to say the selling point, but it's like the main thing about Erasmus is you get to travel for free, you get to experience the other cultures firsthand. So it's difficult organizing it online and getting that engagement, but it will be interesting to do these courses with people from all the different countries. And each organization is running a different section of the course. So that's our next plan, and then we'll see how it goes in the next few months of the pandemic, whether we can actually get some mobilities organized. But yeah.
Amazing. No, that sounds really exciting. I'll definitely continue following what you guys are doing.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being interviewed, and it's just really interesting hearing what other people are doing in terms of different projects. And
yeah, no, amazing. It's my pleasure. It's always nice to kind of chat about the work that we're doing, and I think it's really important to see it in a kind of European and international context as well.
Yeah. No, and it's definitely interesting for the people that we work with to, I don't know, to like I say, have something that's more, I don't want to say current, but more modern, I think is really, well, it's definitely exciting for me, and I think for people that we work with too. It's great.
Amazing. All right.
Perfect, thank you.